Hello, my beautiful friends.
What's going on, Papa?
So glad to be here with you guys.
Good morning, everyone.
So this is the I'm Sorry I Wasn't Listening podcast. Shout out to Andrew, my co-host. He is down in San Diego right now holding it down for us. We are in beautiful Yosemite at this particular moment in time. I have some amazing people with me. We have Miggy all the way to the far right. We have Cristobal. You guys know who I am. And we have Aster, who's going to be stepping in just a moment. I truly enjoy every second that I've spent with you guys over this weekend. So first, I just want to acknowledge that. It's been a beautiful experience. We've seen so much together. We've learned so much about one another. This is the type of thing that I would honestly do for the rest of my life, which kind of brings me into what I wanted to talk to you about. I was at Cristobal's house with Savannah, his amazing girlfriend and sister to me, and we were having this conversation about all of the good and the bad that we see in the world. And one of the things that came up that kind of scared me a little bit was a discussion as to whether or not we would, as Miggy put it earlier, check out. Like, I noticed that a lot of people are aiming now for a more secluded life away from all of the hustle and bustle, but more specifically away from people. And as I get older, I just turned 27 a few days ago, I'm finding myself desiring or admiring that life more and more. And I'm wondering from you guys, what do you feel like, I don't want to say necessarily the right choice is, but what do you feel like are the processes that go into making a decision like that? What do you feel about the culture? What do you feel about this world that we're living in? We see so much war. We see so much negativity. We had a negative experience the other day where someone said something so malicious, not to us, but to us, right, about someone else that we were like, what, like, would you want to stick around for that? Or do you feel like it's a possibility in your mind that you might check out, go find yourself a cabin in the woods, and just live out the rest of your days off the land and have peace?
What was the backstory behind that?
I'm going to go into it very lightly just to preserve and be kind to people, because we don't have the entire perspectives. But we were in the gym and somebody said something that we were just really not fond of. It was something that if it was said about our families, we would have personally taken we took extreme discomfort regardless. Even if it wasn't necessarily about us, we still were very upset. So that's where I'm going to leave it at. But really the question that I want us to be able to answer is, I worry about, man, if I check out, am I going to not be giving my full contribution to this world? Like, there's so much I feel like I'm supposed to do. There's so much I feel like we're supposed to do. One of my favorite quotes is, your rent here on earth is your service to others. Will I not be paying my dues if I check out? Or should I value my peace over helping individuals? What do you guys think?
Should I go first? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just so weird because I feel like life is so individualistic. I can't expect everyone to think the same way that I do, for example. And I feel like your motivations are largely driven by your goals that you set for yourself. Maybe some people don't have very ambitious goals of saving the world, for example. I feel like that is something that should not be expected of everyone. What if I just wanted to take care of myself, for example? I feel like that would manifest itself in a different way through your actions in life versus someone who wants to end world hunger or something.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
It does.
So I just feel like checking out means different to different people, and I feel like that's usually how I think about it when I meet people and learn about what they like and what they're into and what their goals are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
What do you think?
That's a very key point right there, perspective and the ambition of people's goals. But I would say if that's something that that is your goal and you want to get away from civilization and because of the horrible things you may hear or experience, but somehow deep down you want to come back into it, I feel like it's good to kind of gather yourself together, put yourself in a good position, learn about yourself, and then go back into the world. If you want to contribute, then there's that option too. Balance, exactly. It's like that whole, we use that as a metaphor, but you're on a plane. They say if the oxygen masks come down, take care of yourself first and then your neighbor.
Chris Gordon is going to love you. He's going to love you. That's his favorite quote. Like that, he lives behind that. And I think that you bring up a very, very good point. It doesn't have to be a binary choice, zeros and ones. It doesn't have to be black and white, if you will. You can have balance. Like this, for me, unfortunately, is not enough balance, but it was a nice getaway. But like, if I could do this 3 months out of the year and then go save the world, you know what I mean, like through my own way, which is probably not the same as anybody else's, right? I would do that. Like, can you find balance? And unfortunately, a lot of that is financial for a lot of people. Like, it's circumstance and it's their resources. A lot of people can't do that, which is why I wonder, like, are more people trying to move to more secluded areas? Like, I've noticed I work in a small town, even though I live in more of like the big city area. I work in a smaller town, and I'm hearing people talking. They're like, "Yo, yeah, I just moved here. Yep, I'm just moving here." And the people in that area seem to be like, "Man, there's a lot of people coming here." And I'm wondering if that's because A, maybe it's just the price, maybe it's cheaper to live in that smaller town and then commute, or B, is it also these people are looking for a place to go get away and rest their heads, and it's a little bit more peaceful and not as hectic, you know. But I do think that balance has to be the key. What if you could, let's make it a little bit more lighthearted. If you could, where would be that place that you would choose to have as a getaway? What would be that area that you would go to reset?
Man, I don't know specifically the place I would, but it'd be somewhere in the woods. I feel like we talked about this. Somewhere in the woods, my own little cabin. If Sab, I'm sure Sab would love that too. But obviously, I would let her answer that question by herself. But I would definitely like the woods.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where, but somewhere in the woods.
Yeah.
In the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I don't know. I feel like if I could even if I could even make time in my schedule for a vacation, I feel like I would go fucking all out. So it'd be sweet to go to like Hawaii or something. Resort, massages on deck, buffets on deck, beaches on deck.
Yeah.
So you
view over the water.
Still have some amenities.
Oh yeah, for sure, dude. I don't know.
That's fair.
Unplugging though, I think is important, but it depends what you're unplugging from, right? I think if you're trying to get away from work, then that's what it is. I don't think I've gotten into a point yet where I just want to get away from civilization. I don't know. How did you guys feel about COVID? That was pretty much, for me, that was kind of like
a good break.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people also kind of lost their touch with how to talk to people.
Humanity.
Yeah.
Not even just humanity. It's just like, I feel like people forgot how to socialize.
How to communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was an interesting time, to say the least, and I'm sure there's many people who would say I'm preaching to the choir on this one. There was a day specifically that I remember where I was a part of the essential workers, right? And I'm driving to work, and there's no cars on the road.
Whoa.
And I was like, this is trippy. I was like, this is really, really strange. And in that moment, because you guys are in Fresno, Mom's in the Bay, even though I had some friends down there as well, I truly felt alone for a moment. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I don't like this. Is this what it feels like for people who don't have like a good community around them? You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
So I would say that, strangely enough, although I'm sitting here saying I would love to get away, when it was taken from me as opposed to being a decision that I got to make, it felt very, very off.
Oh yeah.
I lived for those moments when I could get to work and talk to people. I did my best to abide by the rules. We weren't going to parties. We weren't going to, you know what I mean? Like, we tried our best. I won't lie to you. As soon as they had like the outdoor gym sections, I was all there.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the gym, had a great outdoor section. So I think in all, COVID taught us a lot of lessons, but for me, it did teach me the importance of the community, which is why I think balance is probably the best way to go. Like, maybe I would be in that cabin very happy for the first 6 months, and then 6 months later, I'd probably be like, dang, I kind of miss people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we did grow up. I mean, I'm not going to speak on you, but I did grow up with a village. You see what I'm saying? So like that definitely is a core foundation for my upbringing. So I'm going to miss that at some point. That's just my 2 cents in there.
So you're saying you want to go back to where you're from?
Not necessarily. I feel like just touching on the community. Like if I'm away from society for that long, I am going to at some point mourn for it and want to come back to it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I think humans are like tribal creatures. We're not I don't think we're best by ourselves. Which is like if I got a cabin in the woods, I would hope that Chris has a cabin down the street. You know what I mean? I hope that mom's either in one of our cabins or down the street. I would hope that, you know, a couple of friends that I care about. I think the problem is I have gotten so insulated in my bubble of positivity because I'm around the same people who I have selected and they have selected me. And so that was why it was weird, Miggy. Excuse me, when I ran into that situation the other day with Chris, I was jarred. I haven't used that word in a long time. I was jarred because this person said something so negative that I was like, what? Like, and then
so
then
openly,
you remember,
and freely, bro.
And freely.
Were they having a bad day or something?
No, son.
No, it seemed like it was a part of their nature, which was even scary. If it was a bad day and he was like, I want to beat this person up, I'd be like, I feel you, bro. But but it was such a negative and honestly disgusting comment. I know people are going to wonder what it is, but unfortunately I just don't feel like spreading that level of negativity by going all the way through with that. What I will say is it taught me something very valuable because on the drive afterwards, not only were Cristobal and I thinking about what was the best thing that we could do, because like mom always taught us, control what you can control, right? Like, what should we have done best in that situation? What was the best outcome that we could have found after this person has dragged this interaction down to such a negative low? But more specifically, I was like, why was I so jarred by that? And I was like, wow, I'm so insulated by this group that I've handpicked. Maybe even though I'm happier in this group, maybe I've actually stripped myself of a vital defense. And that vital defense to me was my ability to deal with problems of that caliber and be ready for them more specifically. I felt like for the first time in a while I was not ready. You see the news, you see the wars in Ukraine, you see all of the issues in the world, right? We're shooting down balloons and stuff like that. But what you don't get to see a lot of times if you're really well insulated is extreme close face-to-face problems of that caliber.
So that raises this question of being a potential bystander. Right. Now let's put an example out there just so we have something to actually narrow in on.
Yeah.
Let's say there is a carjacking going on.
Yeah.
Right. Let's put a scenario. It's 11 at night, carjacking going on. You're by yourself. What do you do in that situation? You assume it's a carjacking. So that's we're kind of seeing like if this is going to be something we go into it and solve the problem, or do we walk away, or how do we figure that out? Because anyway, go ahead.
If I saw a carjacking happening and there was nobody in the vehicle, I would most likely call the police.
Call the police.
Like,
simple.
I'm not a part of that. Like, I think when I was growing up in Virginia, they're like, "Oh, you're snitching." I'm like, "Bro, that's something somebody worked very hard for." We don't condone that anymore. That's not the way that we're moving. In Virginia, I think we would all lie to ourselves. I would have lied to myself and be like, "Oh man, I'm not going." No, it's not. We've grown up.
Yeah.
So if there was no one involved, if there was someone involved, like someone is harming somebody, I have just recently started like my physical training for like combat type of stuff where I could handle a situation with another human. I've only been powerlifting for a few years. I'm not going to tell you I'm the most capable person in the world. Clearly I'm not. But what I would say is I'm going to do everything in my power I can to help and try and end it as peacefully as possible, which is why I think, and I'm not trying to take us on another tangent, I like these scenarios that you're throwing out, but that's why I think that everyone should be trained to some degree in some type of physical combat. Like, you should know how to handle yourself. You should know how to have, like, whatever it is. If it's sexual assault avoidance classes, I don't know what the actual name is, but, you know, to be prepared for those situations, I think puts you in a better, and also makes you don't end up hurting someone else. Like, now I'm like, oh, I know how to get somebody to the ground and kind of hold them there. So I don't have to go up and like start knocking heads off where you could cause somebody brain damage or something like that. Like, how can I handle this situation to the best of my ability? That would be my thought process. What would you do? The scenario was you see a carjacking, it's late at night. Was there a person being harmed?
No
So
person.
no person being harmed. What would you do?
Was the to follow up on that question? Was there somebody someone was being carjacked? Like
Yeah, it was just you saw you're driving by 11 at night and you see
empty.
someone, car's empty, no one's inside, but you see something that could be potential carjacking.
And the original question was being a bystander to the situation.
You're right.
I'm just about my business and I just see that stuff. I mean, I would probably use, like he said, probably call the cops, because one, you don't know if they're armed, especially what the world is today and everything like that.
True.
You can't risk your own life for that. But, there's always that thing in the back of your mind, like you said, you had like, formal training. So that you're like, can I take this guy down? Can I subdue this guy?
Become
while
a
the cops
vigilante.
come?
At
Yeah, I
some
mean,
point.
in a way, of course, there's always that thing. I can say,
Right.
dang, I can save this person's car, but
Right.
just at the end of the day, you want to stay safe for yourself, to others. There's other bystanders around. He could have a gun.
Right.
Stuff like that happen.
Right.
So
Let me throw out a different scenario because I like the way that Chris took this. Right.
Yeah.
You're in a conversation with somebody, and somebody says something extremely foul, and it seems like their intent is to execute upon this idea. So I'm gonna throw out a situation. A guy comes up. This is not the situation we dealt with, but I'm gonna try and parallel it in some way. Somebody comes up to you and they're talking to you, and you've known them for a few days through a mutual group, and they're like, "Man, tomorrow I plan to go break into somebody's house because I really don't like this person." What do you think the best? They have not done it, but at this point they're kind of they're definitely it's premeditated at that moment.
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
What do you think the best option is in a situation like that? I'm just curious. There's no right or wrong answers.
What do you think?
If they're crazy, wouldn't you snitch?
Well, isn't that the thing though? You've been hanging out with him for a few days. You don't know. You don't know what his mindset is and everything like that. So
I don't know. I feel like if it's a danger for someone, you'd have to snitch,
I
right?
see.
are you saying the
There's
dude?
no right or wrong
They haven't
answers.
told you the house. They haven't told you anything.
He just I feel like robbing this
I
dude.
feel like robbing this guy.
You come
How about
you
this?
coming with me or is
Check
he
me out,
saying-
I mean,
guys.
I'd ask probing questions first, obviously, right? I'd be like, yo, dude, are you serious about this?
Yeah.
And if he starts divulging, really realistic details,
Gotcha.
let's,
Gotcha.
that he's
Count
actually,
me out.
planning it,
I got you.
like,
Then go into it.
Would you tell the cops? Would you do something about
well, I
it?
don't know if I tell the cops. I'll probably
Yeah.
tell, their mom or something.
Someone, right? At least tell someone in the group.
In the
hey,
group.
man,
Watch out for
Trust
him.
their mom is robbing the house with him.
Yeah, it's yo.
Chris, I want to hear what
Yeah.
Chris has to think.
No, that's a really good point though. Probe some questions, see if he's really about or she's really about it. But I think that's a great option. Something that I would do personally is kind of just try to derail them from that idea. Try to knock some sense into him. Hey, that's not a good idea, or stay away from that situation. In my best opinion.
A great question is why? Why do you want to do this? Oh, I don't like that person.
Questions.
Okay, but
That's right.
But what is the outcome what's your desire? I used to hate. I quote mom so much now, it's hilarious. But mom used to say, "What is your desired outcome?" Right? That's a great question
Right.
to ask somebody. What is it that you're planning to happen from this? Are you planning to just cause this person harm? Are you just really upset with them? Because you're really putting yourself honestly
Make him
now
think
in more harm's
about
way.
what they're.
Exactly.
Sorry, but yeah, make him think.
about their
Because a lot of people these days, they don't.
Think.
That doesn't
Yeah,
exactly.
think.
They just act without
Common
knowing
sense
the
isn't
consequences
common
of whatever their actions would be.
I agree. No, that's a great way to try to derail somebody from doing something heinous.
Yeah. So. But yeah, all in all, go throughout the group. But do you know this cat? He said he's gonna rob somebody. So
Try to find this core group if you can.
Yeah.
And keep an eye for your boy or your girl, man.
So it's.
Yeah. It's a little touchy, man, because sometimes, for example, let's just say this guy's like, oh, man, this guy has and by no means am I doing this, guys, but let's say this guy's like, oh, this guy has a juicy sound system, a nice-ass setup. What do you guys think of his mansion? And kind of leading into that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they're not really attempting anything. It's more like putting the idea out there.
I mean, I don't think that's that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Just
People think.
he's just impressed by whatever shit's in their
True.
house.
And you do have the opportunity to stop it too, So, whatever he's saying he wants to do, you have the opportunity to de-escalate the situation.
There you go.
If you can, logically.
De-escalate.
If not, then just try to walk away from it. I mean, if he gets caught, would it make you an accessory?
But would it
You know,
though?
so-
But would it though?
I think so. I think to some degree, if you
It'll make an accessory.
That's what scared me about what Miggy said. He's like, I asked follow-up questions. I'm like, man, it's part of me, selfishly, would want to ask as few questions as possible. He'd be like, oh, I want to rob the house. And he'll be like, that's crazy. Have a great day. Because in my mind, I'm like, the more questions I ask,
the deeper it.
Oh,
dive
he's gonna
into
kill
the-
you or something?
no, you're an accessory to that stuff.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
because if anyone ever found it, he's like, man, he's in court, and he's like, man, I was talking,
Yeah,
to, Reg,
I-
I was
Miggy
talking to
told me-
Reg about this yesterday. And that's when I knew it was a bad idea, but I went through with it. And now I'm in court like,
Yeah, it's
bro,
like, so
come
you
on.
knew.
Come on, dog.
Bro, it took you under the bus with
Yeah,
him, bro.
throw you down. And then you know how they switch it up on you. They'd be like, you know what, part of this was his idea. And you're like,
I'll see
wait.
you in jail with
yeah,
me.
see you
Like,
in jail. Like, trying to get that sentence reduced.
Damn. Now you
Yeah.
can't get the house in Bora Bora.
Oh, not anymore.
Yeah, I think the premise, just to come back to a baseline, is what do you do in these types of situations? Like, how do you respond? What is the, like, for me, when I was in that situation the other day, I was like, am I exhibiting the qualities? Because I don't always know if I'm doing the best to be a good man. All I know is that I'm trying. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know if the potency of my actions leads me towards being a good man. I just know that I'm doing the best I can to be a good man. So it's like, when you're faced with all these life decisions, I think one thing to keep in mind is your North Star. As long as you stick to your moral compass, usually, and maybe not always, but usually you're going to end up in the right place. And I had a conversation with Mom, and I'm curious, I'll pose this as the last question of the day, but we discussed intent versus perspective and which one was more important. And so what I will say is, as long as your intent is in the right place, that's really the only thing you can control, because you can't control someone else's perspective, right? But my next question to you is, which one do you think is more powerful? Your intent for someone in a situation, or their perspective of what you've delivered to them?
I would say this is the intent. I would say the intent, because that's something that you can't control, because it's coming from you, rather than controlling them on their perspective. And you can do the best you can to try to prevent whatever's going on. But like you used to say this a lot. I don't know if you still say it, but you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. You know, but it's your intent of trying. I think it goes a long way.
What do you think, Maggie?
I would say probably intent too. I feel like people interpret your actions differently, which is inevitable because people have different ways of perceiving body language or maybe how you say something. So I feel like as long as your intentions are genuine, that is more important as a personal characteristic of like virtue than how other people perceive of what you do, which I think is somewhat more selfish. Well, no, maybe not selfish. It's just like more, I feel like there's more of like the fact that you're worried about how you're perceived is like a different level of I don't know. You get what I'm saying?
I got you.
Yeah.
Follow up with them intent. I mean, like I said, if your intentions are genuine and everything like that, because these days people, it's human nature. I would say people are so quick to judge, everything like that. So and they don't know what your intentions are. I mean, as long as they're genuine and good, then
Yeah.
you know you're on your own right track, no matter what other people think. So.
I wonder how, this is a quick little question, because now we're like outside of Oakhurst, which is a little town before Yosemite. I wonder how smaller towns might perceive this, right? Like these scenarios. How would they handle these situations? Because it's smaller town, city
Yeah,
life.
that's true. Exactly.
You know.
I would imagine that they'd be like more hands-on, because you have more connection because there's less to worry about. So like, here's a thought process. Like, I was listening to like a podcast the other day, and they were talking about the Dunbar's number, right? The groups that people are normally used to associating with. So they were saying that people are not supposed to, or usually throughout history, associate with more than 150 people at a time, right? And that's kind of your max. If you're in a small town, it's easier to connect. But when you're in a big world, especially the moment you turn on a cell phone or a computer, you end up around thousands, if not millions of people.
Right.
And it probably makes it harder for you to connect to any one of them, right? So then, like, your ability to handle the situation becomes more individual, or about the individual. Like, if I'm in a city and I see a bunch of dudes fighting, I'm about to walk the other way. I'm like, nah, son, people fight every day. But
Right.
if I'm in a small town, I see people fighting, I'm going to be like, probably one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to know them and be like, that's Jerry's kid, and that's Ryan's kid,
Right.
and, you know, that's Susie's boy over there. Let me just break this up and
Right.
get these
Right.
knuckleheads back to the house, right? But when you're in the city, it's the same thing. That's Jerry's kid, that's Ryan's kid, and that's Susie's boy. They're still human, you know what I mean? They're still people, like,
Yeah.
but our ability to connect to them is different when you're in two different areas.
Right.
Even if I don't know them and I'm in a small town, I have more of a self-obligation to preserve the atmosphere and the environment that I have grown to know and love so intimately, because it is more intimate than a city is. So even if it's just from that perspective, I'm going to go in and probably intervene to some degree.
Right.
Nowadays, you don't know. I mean,
True.
nowadays, if I'm in the city or if I'm in the woods, I might not jump into anything just for fear of risking my own life, right?
100%.
Especially if we talked about this the other day. If you have a family member with you, best believe I'm getting them out of there. I don't care about none of you. If my mother's with me, if Sav is with me, if you're with me, like even if Chris is with me, Chris is extremely capable. You think I'm gonna be like, Chris, we're getting out of Dodge. We're
I saw
gone.
you. Quick example was yesterday, crossing that river. He said, "Don't do it, bro." He was holding me on for his dear life. You know what I mean? But it's like that. You want to make sure your loved ones are protected first. If you see such a situation.
Yeah.
Any form of danger too. You know, it doesn't have to be like a death or anything like that. It's just like a fall.
Right.
Yeah, I want to make sure you're not hurt and everything like that.
I feel weird with you guys. He mentioned this earlier. I feel weird with you guys being over here next to this ledge. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I care about these people, so I don't want these people like getting hurt in any way, shape, or form. I want to bring this back. An interesting. This is what we'll end on. An interesting thought that Mom provided. And I'm just going to tell you the way that I interpret it because I could never speak it as eloquently or beautifully as she did. But when I asked her this question, I called her up one day and I said, look, I had this situation and this was my intent, but this was this person's perspective. I want to know which one you think is more important. She actually said it was that person's perspective, which is interesting because I would have agreed with you and said it was intent.
Whoa.
But what she said was, and I'm paraphrasing here, very, very much so, she said, but what was the final result? And the final result was that person's perspective. So as a self-character trait, what Miggy said was correct. If you're looking at the self, your intent is important because it's what you can control, right? But from a macro perspective, if I step out and I just look at two parties that I am completely neutral in, and this person has the intent, but your perspective is poor, or maybe your perspective is good, your perspective is actually the more important of the two just in that situation because you determine by how you've received the information. Now, we're not talking about the fact that you were raised in an environment that made you feel that way, the fact that you whatever. Like I said, like if I went, what's up, bro? And you're from a place where what's up, bro means well, we about to throw down.
Right.
And he's from a place when he says it where what's up, bro means what's up, bro?
Right.
How you doing? You take that away and y'all start throwing hands. Does his intent matter as much as the fact that you took it that way? You see what I'm saying? And I was like, wow. So, food for thought.
That is deep.
Yeah. Something to think about. We'll continue it at some point. Hopefully the next time we're in Yosemite.
Hell yeah.
But thank you guys for coming out. Once again, we have Aster, Cristobal, Miggy, Reggie. This was a pleasure. Once again, shout out to all the people back home. We love you guys. Have a good one.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.